Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about a big win in the city of Portland. And yes, I am shocked to be reporting on this because a guy who was a Republican up until 5 minutes ago just beat the woke Soros-backed District Attorney Mike Schmidt, who was absolutely horrible, let the Antifa thugs, the homeless, everyone run amok, and he has promised and ran on a tough on crime platform. Now, we're going to get into this. I'm going to explain why this is so big, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over on actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And remind you that this show is available in podcasting form. Link to that in the description of this video.
It appears a new face will lead prosecution of criminals in Multnomah County starting next year, as current District Attorney Mike Schmidt concedes the race.
So honestly, on this channel, we don't talk about Portland enough, but Portland is essentially one of the most progressive cities, if not the most progressive cities in the entire country. In terms of a horrible, terrible laws, horrible, terrible politicians, they are that to the tens, and they even have problems fundamentally with their government structure in that the mayor of Portland is automatically the police commissioner, and considering Ted Wheeler was the mayor and he's a woke, pro-Antifa, never do anything on law enforcement at any point in time, this has led to disastrous results. And that's usually where the focus of my coverage has been related to Portland, or we'll talk about particular crimes and all of that, but we don't actually talk about the district attorney for this particular area, and this is because all the other problems related to the police tend to take center stage and related to the mayor's office. In fact, I remember, as bad as Ted Wheeler was, that I actually had to root for him in an election because he was running in the primary, and this is one of those areas where the person who wins the Democratic primary ends up winning the election, against an actual Antifa woman who thought that he was too much of a fascist. The guy who allowed Antifa rioters to go unchallenged for 100 days, attack a federal courthouse, all the crazy stuff that we saw in Portland in 2020, a guy who cut the funding of the police, defanged the police, depowered them, lets the homeless people do anything, lets open air drug markets run rampant, was the moderate in comparison to the progressiver challenger against him in that election. But Mike Schmidt is somebody who should get a lot of attention because he's been absolutely horrible in the city of Portland, in this county, and for the state of Oregon overall. And honestly, he's been so bad that we've actually seen a trend of reversals of bad progressive laws in Oregon, and this is just a continuation of said trend. First and foremost, Oregon basically legalized possession of almost all drugs. Well, that was done through a ballot initiative, but just a couple of years later, the governor signed legislation to recriminalize drugs in order to try to force people into rehabilitation facilities after a dramatic spike in overdoses, and even the progressives in the city of Portland, to a clip of about 70%, support this recriminalization.
Now, Schmidt conceded to Vasquez in a statement that was released about an hour ago, so although the result is not official yet, Multnomah County will have a new district attorney come January.
There are still votes to count, but it appears senior Deputy DA Nathan Vasquez is on his way to victory, leading Mike Schmidt with 55% of the vote to Schmidt's 45%.
So why the big upset, you might be asking? Why a nearly 10-point victory from a guy, Vasquez, who is a Republican up until 8 minutes ago in the Democratic primary in one of the most progressive cities, one of the most progressive counties in the United States of America? In fact, this particular county hasn't backed a Republican presidential candidate since 1960. That's how locked in with the Democrats they are, but they just put up Vasquez, who again was a Republican up until 4 minutes ago, and it wasn't even close. He blew him out of the water. Well, since this guy has taken office, prosecutions have dropped dramatically. They used to do in this district attorney's office about 12,000 cases a year, and that ended up getting reduced to 6,000 cases. This guy was prosecuting at a clip of half in certain years, and in other years it was even worse, where he was prosecuting 2/3 compared to other years at the district attorney's office of the cases compared to the predecessor in this particular office. Now, you might be saying, well, maybe he's the best district attorney of all time, Sean. Maybe crime go down in Portland. That's why he prosecutes half the rate of these other district attorneys, because progressive policies are so great, so stunning, so brave, so beautiful, so charming that it just makes sense that the cases would go down. Well, that's absolutely not the case. In fact, Portland homicides are up dramatically in 2022, which is the numbers that we have from this New York Post article, they had 95 homicides in a city of 630,000 people. Now, of course, there are cities that are significantly worse, but for Portland, this is egregious. This is absolutely horrible. And it follows that if you would have a spike in homicides, so have a spike in all these different property crimes, have a spike in all these other various categories, you would expect prosecutions to go up in response to that, not down. But in reality, the lack of prosecution, the repeated release of repeat offenders, the defunding of the Portland police, and all these other problems have combined, along with Mike Schmidt, to end up leading to the crime spike. This is a perfect example of it, and even the residents of Portland are sick of it. And you know it's an absolute disaster when all these different various progressives say, oh, Portland, not as progressive as we thought it was. They ended up saying we don't like all these murders and all this anarchy, and that's why they voted this guy out, because they were fooled by the propaganda of the mainstream media and all these attacks on Portland. And in reality, nothing could be further from the truth. The state of Oregon passed all these measures to decriminalize drugs, including hard drugs. Portland allows the homeless people to do whatever they want, camp wherever they want. They defunded the police. They ended up defanging the police. They've had a huge drop down in recruitment. They let these Antifa anarchist scum riot for 100 days in a row in the city of Portland, attack a federal courthouse over and over again. All these different things that are clearly and obviously bending the knee to these progressive idiots, and the results were higher crime and a rejection of these policies and the embrace of a Republican. Now, technically, he won the Democratic primary. I understand that. You understand that. But this guy was a Republican until 8 minutes ago. In fact, he changed his registration as the other guy was conceding the race. That's how recent he was a Republican, and he absolutely walloped him, and he ran completely on enforcing the damn law. Imagine this shocking revelation that in a city in the United States of America, a district attorney has to run on actually doing the job of the district attorney compared to the previous person who saw himself as a second defense attorney.
A prosecutor in the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office for more than 24 years, Nathan Vasquez focused his campaign on crime and the perception that the fentanyl crisis in Multnomah County is out of control.
What this community is hungry for is a different direction, one in which, we really value victims, and we bring back the idea that it's okay to hold people accountable.
And again, you might be thinking to yourself, listen, Sean, okay, I understand you're saying this guy's a former Republican, but he didn't run like a real Republican. He didn't run on a policy like broken windows and on law enforcement like you're portraying this. And maybe, just maybe, there were other candidates that split the vote, even though you showed us already that it was essentially 54 to 45. So obviously there were no other candidates in this race. Also, let me be clear, there were no other candidates in this race. But if you look at the platform of Vasquez, it was essentially broken windows. He ran on broken windows in Portland and he won. Don't believe me? Let me quote from it so you can see it for yourself. At the top of his platform is accountability, and it reads as follows. We must take lawless behavior seriously and enforce our laws. Studies show the best way to deter crime is the certainty of getting caught, the swiftness of the penalty, and the severity of the punishment. Even, quote, petty crimes like theft, vandalism, littering, public use of illicit drugs, and public highs all contribute to an overall feeling of safety and well-being of a community. It's all of these small things that have added up to create the environment of chaos and completely broken the social contract we all agree to as citizens of the community. When we don't enforce, we tell our community we don't care. That's the real deal right there. That's broken windows right there. And by the way, that's accurate. One of the reasons why deterrence is considered ineffective is because you can't guarantee in a lot of times that the punishment is certain, that it's going to be swift, and that it's going to be severe enough. But this guy's committed to that path. He has this crazy theory that based on Schmidt not prosecuting anyone for anything and crime going up dramatically, that if he starts prosecuting people for things, he starts enforcing the law, crime will go back down. Isn't it crazy how that works? And look, he's made it absolutely clear that he's going to go after people using drugs in public, but he's also going to enforce something that was not enforced by Schmidt's office: failure to appear in court. Basic things like you can't use drugs out in public, destroy a community, and when you get arrested, you actually have to go to court. Basic, simple, crazy how it works when you actually enforce those things, but those were all things that were being ignored by Schmidt. In fact, we talked about this pattern of the left where they'll say, oh, bail isn't meant to be a punishment. It's not meant to be about risk assessment. It's meant to stop people from fleeing and make sure they show up to court, so it should only be used in those circumstances. Yet in every single one of their criminal justice reform packages, every single one of these district attorneys don't enforce appearances in court. They let that go. Well, guess what? Vasquez has had enough of that, and he's going to go after it.
Elected with 76% of the vote in 2020, Schmidt came into the office during the pandemic and in the wake of the social justice demonstrations. As the situation on Portland streets deteriorated, Schmidt got much of the blame, and his progressive approach to criminal justice allowed his critics, including Vasquez, to paint him as the face of a broken criminal justice system. It's a perception Schmidt just couldn't overcome.
Schmidt was hit over his progressive policies. That's why he lost. Vasquez did not run to the left of him. What a difference a couple of years makes, because remember, Ted Wheeler almost lost his election to some crazy Antifa lady, and he ended up barely fending that person off by trying to justify his left-wing bona fides. But in this particular case, Vasquez hit him over and over and over again, and obviously Schmidt had nothing to say about it. He even tried to say, well, if you look in the last couple of months in this incomplete data where we don't have all the information, crime actually down. I actually solved every problem ever. In this very narrow sense, crime down, and nobody was buying it.
Actually, you look at the downtown crime rates the last 6 months, we're back to where we were pre-pandemic. And a lot of the different crime rates are coming down. But what I'm hearing from people is even when you say that to folks, they're like, well, I don't believe that.
Yeah, and they should not believe that. This is the trick that they often use against you, which is talk about the current year that you're in, where the crime statistics are the most incomplete, and say, oh, it's actually down right now at this point in time. I mean, we'll revise it later. We haven't even gotten into the summer yet, where crime really starts to become a problem. And then he's like, wow, these stupid idiots, these dumb voters don't believe me. They actually believe the decay and everything they see in their everyday lives, and how I've let the city go absolutely crazy, and how I don't prosecute anyone for anything. I can't believe these dumb idiots actually bought into the fact that I am not the savior, the god figure of Portland, of this county. Oh my god, maybe they're evil white racists, if we're being perfectly honest.
Vasquez doesn't take over until January of 2025, making for an uncomfortable office dynamic until then.
Well, I mean, obviously there's always interpersonal, situations, but I have a job to do. Voters put me here to do that until December 31st. That's what I intend to do.
Now, what they're referencing when they talk about this uncomfortable office dynamic is that Vasquez is one of these career prosecutors who had been in this district attorney's office for 20 years that was not fired by this guy. He's somebody who's been outspoken against him in the same office, and now he's going to work in this prosecutor's office until January of next year, where he takes this job from this guy, and a guy that he absolutely destroyed, obliterated in this election. But it is an incredibly good sign that even in Portland, they've had enough with these woke DAs. And by the way, according to this New York Post article, Gascon over in California, Los Angeles, Pamela Price has a recall election too, but 10 different Soros-funded woke Sean King-backed district attorneys are up for re-election this year, and I'm hoping they absolutely get demolished, because these people have absolutely destroyed any prospect for reasonable criminal justice reform with their anti-cop and insanely pro-criminal ideology. But I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. Is this a good sign for the city of Portland, or do you think all hope is in fact lost? Do you think the fact that they voted differently should actually lead to different results and they deserve credit for that, or is the wokeness that they voted for in the past just too much to overcome? Again, all your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about a tough on crime Republican winning in Portland. Till next time.